Mary Navarro. My name's Mary Alice Navarro. I maiden name Downs. And
were you born in Muncie?
no, but I believe that I've been in Muncie since I was 2 years old.
Mm-hmm. Where were you born?
Indianapolis.
Indianapolis. And you came to Muncie then in what year?
1917.
1917. Your whole family moved here?
Yes, they actually moved from Pendleton, Indiana.
Mm-hmm. How big a family did you have?
Well, there was just me and my mother and father.
Mm-hmm. What brought you to Muncie?
I don't know. I don't know what I think it was a gas boom. Was it a gas boom in 1917 or something like that?
Well, during World War I, I think the major part of the gas boom had ended, but there was still probably, he came here for work then.
Yes.
Did he know anybody here? Did you have any relatives here or
no,
anything like that?
They had lived here before, I think. Yeah, they had lived here before. And they lived around in the area. It was in some of these small towns around here.
Mm-hmm. And what was his name?
William T. Downs.
William T. Downs. And where did you live then when you came here? Do you remember? Of course, you wouldn't remember, but maybe they told you.
Well, I remember that as a little child, I lived on the corner of First and Center. Muncie Holmes is in there now.
And where did your father work?
He was a hod carrier. I guess that's extinct now. I think machines or something do that.
Yeah, not too many.
He carried him on his shoulder.
Mm-hmm. Did he do that all his life after here? He came here? Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Worked for a number of different
Yeah.
contractors, I suppose.
Buildings. As a little kid, this is what we do sometimes on Sunday. Get on the streetcar. He'd show us different buildings at the Masonic Temple and I guess Delco Remy, because I think they used to call that the Muncie Products. And that where the American National Bank stands now, those kind of buildings. It was a Delaware County Bank or something.
Mm-hmm. Were there any other black people working with him?
Yeah. Oh yes.
Also as hod carriers?
Yes.
I don't suppose there were too many masons and those in the skilled trades then?
No. He was a union man, though.
Mm-hmm. What union did he belong to then?
All I know is the hod carriers local.
Uh-huh. How long did you live at that First and Center address?
We moved from that address when I was 11 years old. And then we moved over in the 700 block on South Jefferson.
Mm-hmm. Is that where the Munciana, that's near?
Those houses still stand, I think.
Yeah.
The first one was 716, and then we moved to another address, 708 on South Jefferson. I think they're still standing. There's a brickyard or something across the street. It's across the street from a factory.
Right across from a factory.
There's an old factory stands there, and then there's something else, a sort of a brickyard.
Yeah, is that the Work Novelty or no? What is it? It's right next to the tracks.
Delaware Tool and Engine or something like that.
Uh-huh. Mm-hmm. So you went to school then at Jackson?
Jackson, Washington, Wilson, and Central.
Is Jackson
Was where the Madison Street Branch Y stands now.
where the Madison Street Branch Y?
Yeah.
On, yeah. When did they take that down?
Oh my. It must have been in the early 1930s, and then they created a park there that was Jackson Park and had a swimming pool.
Hmm. Well, was Jackson an old school when you went to it?
Yes.
It was already an old school.
Yes.
How many rooms?
Oh my.
I mean, was it a pretty good size?
It went 6 grades.
Mm-hmm. So you started out in kindergarten?
No, I never went to kindergarten.
You didn't go to kindergarten, you went to first grade. And you were only 5 when you started
Right.
out, huh? Snuck in. Uh-huh. Were there any other Negroes in the school then?
Oh, yes, yes.
What would you say, what kind of proportion?
Well, it wasn't a very big proportion, as you might know.
You weren't the only one in your room.
Oh, no.
No. How many kids did you have in each class? Do you remember it being a lot or a few? More
There might
like.
have been quite a few. It just depends upon what they call, what the size of the classes were then.
Mm-hmm.
See, they think 30 is a big class now, don't they? Or do they?
Well, I would think so.
Well, I don't think it was that many, but.
Mm-hmm. Well, if you had 25 in a class, would there be 5 or 10 Negroes? Or is that hard to say?
Yeah, that's difficult for me, but I remember some of them, but I don't remember whether we were all in the same room. Maybe 5.
Uh-huh. From Jackson, you went to Washington?
Well, because we moved on Jefferson,
Uh-huh.
and we were just on this side of the tracks. And some of the other kids got to go to Washington, so I went too.
Mm-hmm. That's the one they just tore down.
Yeah.
What grades did you attend there then? Were you 5th or 6th?
I have a difficulty with that because, let's see, I was in the 6th grade at Jackson. And it seems to me that I went to Washington more than 1 year. And yet, on the other hand, I must have been in the 8th and 9th grades out at Wilson.
Mm-hmm.
I can't get that straight. You know, the junior high schools then, middle schools now, they were fairly new at that time.
Mm-hmm.
When I first went to Washington, the kids that were leaving Washington were going to Central. They were going to Central for that 9th grade.
Mm-hmm.
But after I got in there, the 9th grade was, not going to be at Central. They had
Mm-hmm.
junior high school.
Mm-hmm. Well, it could be you went to 7th or 8th grade at Washington.
I must have.
Mm-hmm.
And yet I was at Wilson more than 1 year, I think.
Mm-hmm. Do you have any other specific recollections of Jackson School?
I remember several of the teachers. Strange, but I do. I think Mrs. Phillips just passed away a couple of years ago. She was the last one, the 6th grade. And there was a Miss Deal in the 4th grade. Mrs. Fenwick from Daleville. I think that was second or third grade. And Miss Warfel was my first teacher, and Mr. Miller was the principal. Do you remember the teachers?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Let's see, fifth grade. From Jackson to Washington.
Jackson to Washington to Wilson. Then you went to Central. And what year was that now?
I went to Central in 1929.
1929.
And it was tough.
Uh-huh. I noticed a curious thing in about 1929 or 1930. Well, let's see, were you there when Smith Thompson was there then?
He finished 2 years before I did. I think he said he finished in 30.
Mm-hmm.
But I had gone there. I think I was there for a year while he was there. I was,
You remember, well, you must have been there when Willie Folks was there.
no, I wasn't. Because Willie was there like in 1928.
He graduated in 28?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Willie Folks and Alonzo McAllister. Orville McAllister.
I think Orville was
Orville?
in Smith's class.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay, in 1930, I have some of the people who were there. That was the first time there was a black player on the varsity basketball team.
Jack Mann?
Jack Mann.
Well, now, we graduated the same year.
We did.
1932.
Uh-huh. So he was just would have been a sophomore then. He began playing, or maybe a freshman.
No, not freshman, see, because we weren't
That's
going
right.
to,
That's
we
right.
were still out of Wilson.
Right. Right. Okay. He was the first, as nearly as I can tell, the first black player to play first string in varsity basketball. Did that impress you at that time as being a major kind of thing, or of any particular significance?
Whether it did at that time or not. I just really don't remember that it did. And then again, it might have. We were quite proud of him. Yeah, I guess so.
Mm-hmm. I noticed a peculiar thing about the yearbook in 1930. It was the first time, to the best of my knowledge, that this was the case. Prior to that time, in looking through the pictures of the seniors, who each one of whom had an individual portrait picture in the yearbook, they were scattered all around. The Negroes were just, there wasn't any particular order, either alphabetical nor, I couldn't figure out why the pictures were where they were. But in 1930 in the yearbook, there were something like 10, yes, there were 10 black seniors, and they all of their pictures came at the very end of all of the pictures. Did you notice that?
No, I never even kept. I don't know whether it happened to my yearbook. It seems to me that we weren't all together. It seems that it was in alphabetical order.
In alphabetical order?
Mine.
Uh-huh. I asked Smith Thompson about that, and he said he noticed that very clearly. He didn't know that it was the first time, but it seemed to me that it was the first time. There also seemed to be more Negro students in the high school than there had been before.
In 1930?
Yes.
Well, and then it kind of grew. I think we had 12, I think.
In your graduating class?
It's on the diplomas, I remember. No, I mean the number of kids was on the diploma. But I think there were 12 Negroes.
Mm-hmm. Can you, well, I can probably find that out of the yearbook pretty easily. Do you remember some besides Jack Mann?
Julia Edwards. And Richard Groves.
Groves?
Gross. Gross.
Gross.
Alberta Johnson. Some of them don't live here anymore. Geneva. At that time, she was Geneva Henry.
What did your classmates do when they got out of school?
Well, some of us cooked. And I think there were one or two that probably went on to further training, like beauty school. Or might have been some that went. I don't know. There might have been one or two that went to college, but I don't know if they did it right away.
Mm-hmm. How many left town?
Oh, quite a few of them. There's several of them out of town.
Can you recall pretty quickly after they got out of school?
I don't think that soon. It's right in the heart of the Depression.
Yes.
I don't think that's soon.
In your own case, what did you do?
Well, I got a job for $3 a week, and there was an ad in the paper. I didn't do it right away because I didn't. I think really it's a disadvantage even now for kids to finish school at age 16, because. Well, then 16-year-olds were kids. They're not now, but they were, and I just sort of, stood around looking up the sky for a couple of years. And then things were pretty tough. And so I saw an ad in the paper that said, some things you remember so good, but another thing. They said, wanted young colored girl, willing to learn and capable. So I answered it, and it was right up the street here now, of course. And and it said $4 a week. When I got there, it was really only $3. Seems like it would have been $4 had I done the family laundry, because that was an extra $1. But they already had a laundress, and they paid her this $1, but they would have paid it to me. But you see, I was being trained, to do this type of work, and this is why I was only getting $3, because I had to be trained to work in a home. However, I had taken a lot of home economics in school, and she wasn't teaching me that much, but I just didn't tell her. She thought I didn't know how to set a table and things like that, but my mother taught me that. And it was just, it took me a long time to learn, though, that the less you know in situations like that, the better off you are. Because you want to get more money for already knowing it anyway. So, and then...
Who was that you were working for?
For the Tom Ryans. They're all passed away now. They lived right here at Adams, and there's a big yellow house. It sits back in the yard right there at Adams and across from Washington School, Vine Street. So I worked there a year, and I felt like I had pretty good training. And I heard that there were jobs out in Westwood that paid $7 a week. So I tried for it and got it. But at the time, there were no scholarships. I finished on my own, but there weren't any scholarships for black kids. I remember getting ready to go to this luncheon. It didn't mean a thing to me, not a thing. And I didn't want to go to luncheon. But, the service clubs give luncheons they still do. And the Exchange Club gave it for the sophomores, I think. But anyway, Because I didn't have any idea I was on there. I mean, it just didn't matter. Uh, First of all, kids that got 16, they quit. Most of them. They just dropped out. And dropouts then, of course, is not like dropouts now. You're really in trouble if you drop out now. If you dropped out then, it didn't make any difference. You went to college, it didn't make any. So, and I was unhappy the whole time I went to Central. And this is the reason I don't go to those class reunions. I mean, school days just didn't mean anything to me.
Why was that?
Well, Jesus, it wasn't anything. You didn't have any clothes. And when they see I hadn't finished for the simple reason I wasn't old enough to quit. If had I been, I probably would have, you know, when folks had left me. But they were determined that I get an education because they didn't have anything to see. And so I just went. It was just a forced thing. You just went. Because I knew that this was what was going to be, that I was going to have to like or something like that anyway. And I couldn't see where it actually helped. But anyway, that's the way it happened. But sheesh, I thought it was tough. And there was always something. This business about books, and I thought the teachers were so unfair. There might be other people who think differently, but I remember I was taking I was in a foods class. This was before Central. I think this was when I was at Washington. And Washington didn't have a kitchen. And we had to walk all the way to McKinley to take cooking. That's when it was. So, and of course we had, you know, the foods that we were supposed to eat, like a quart of milk a day and two leafy vegetables and one red, one, you know, well-balanced meal. And we had to make a chart, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. So, and we had to, you know, write down what we ate, and you got a grade for this. Isn't that unfair? That was definitely unfair. Because in the heart of the Depression, you didn't have all that food. So you had to lie about it. I mean, like a red vegetable. Who in the world would, a lot of people don't have it now. But a lot of people don't have a red vegetable. Well, I don't care if it is good nutrition. And a full quart of milk or one person to drink? Oh, boy. So you just, and if you didn't do it, your grade depended upon that. So I just wondered sometimes the teachers didn't know we were lying. Well, who's going to say you didn't?
Yeah.
Like some things that we had, I mean, well, for instance, if we had pumpkin, we knew that was a red vegetable. So you just say, yes, you had the red one. But a lot of times you didn't have all those things every day. Now that was all there was to it. There might be some special days once in a while, like on a Sunday or something, that you would try to have and eat. Fruit, oh, great. Fruit you got for Christmas. And so, I don't know, there's just so many things about school days then that I thought were just terrible. I don't have too much. And I'm probably the only one that said that, but that's the way I felt. And they tried to push a bunch of us in home ec. Of course, I liked it anyway. I mean, I didn't mind. They tried to push a bunch of us in home ec because they said this is all we were going to do anyway. You know, go cook someplace.
Did you, in other ways, did you feel that your race had something to do with the grades you got or anything like that? Or did you find it not to be
well, I'll tell you what.
So bad,
No, I don't really think so. Because I tell you, I worked pretty hard. I mean, because my folks, they were strict then. And I had to bring my books home and things like that. And I worked pretty hard for what I just got my stuff. So, I think maybe a couple times at Central, the deportment wasn't, well, one thing kind of kept a chip on my shoulder, you know. I'd be unhappy because I didn't have certain things, certain days that you were supposed to have. And then they give you this business about you must have this book. And I made friends with other people. I knew even my first group I and once in a while they had a used bookstore. Then you know there was no rental. You bought them. Or what? Yeah, it's rent they do now, isn't it? Yeah, book rent. Yeah. Oh, they have it. Yeah. You bought these books, and of course they were higher every year. So I would take something, I would take a course, and I'd have a friend who took this course another time, and I'd borrow her book and copy the entire book. Copy the entire book on one of those big yellow tablets. So, and I would manage to borrow the book the time I was having the course, and then I could borrow it some other times, you know, and I'd copy it. So.
Well, that might have helped you a little bit in the studies.
Yeah, I probably did.
Pretty big chore.
Yeah. But then, like I said, kids then, you know, they made them stay home all the time anyway. You just, you might as well copy the book. There was no TV or anything to look at.
Yeah. Do you recollect then when World War II came along that there were any more opportunities for work or employment?
Oh, yes. I went into the factories myself.
Where?
I worked in all of them. I worked at Newcastle first at the, I think it was a Perfect Circle, something like that, some kind of rubber plant. And I worked at the...
in Newcastle? Did you move down there, or did you
I went
go
on the
back
bus.
and forth?
We commuted every day.
Oh, yeah. Where did you work here in Muncie?
Oh, I worked at Ball Brothers, and I worked at the Goodyear, and I worked at the Chevrolet was the last one. I couldn't do that factory work. It was too hard for me. I'd kill myself doing housework. And I was already tired when I started factory work. I couldn't do it.
Do you recall that after the war, job opportunities for Negroes were any better than they had been before the war?
No, I don't think they were. I don't really think they were. There were a few things that probably that Negroes had always done, but not the high proportion of it that there is now. For instance, political jobs, there would be one or two slums every now and then, oils, and they were usually I think they were like janitors at City Hall.
This is after the war?
Yeah, or one or two, and it was slow, and in those offices that, you know, and I don't think that they were.
Let me ask you, when you were going to high school, I'm just out of high school in the 30s. Were there any black people in Muncie that you particularly admired or looked up to or saw as being important?
That's a difficult question for me to answer. Let me see. I mean, if you'd ask it now, it would be difficult too. I mean, about this time. But of course, young people are so impressionable, and it might have been that there was. Yes, there was. There were these ladies at the YW. This Miss Haywood, Miss Belle Haywood. I think she started the
Belle?
YW here. Yes.
Belle?
B-L-L-E. Hasn't anybody mentioned her?
No, I don't.
Oh, for goodness sake. And,
What do you remember about her?
started to YWCA. And then there was, there'll be others that could probably tell you more about her. Like you might go back and see Miss Woolridge. I mean, about some of these, because she probably can remember.
Well, you remembered Miss Haywood at the time.
Yeah, and Mrs. Riff. Mrs. Riff was the executive secretary of the branch at the time. She was a wonderful person.
Yeah, I've heard of her. What are your recollections of her?
Lady Riff. She was down to the Y, and remember that she organized a group of young ladies. I believe it was supposed to be sort of a business and professional club.
Mm-hmm.
And
when did they open at Y?
you mean the branches?
Yeah.
Oh dear.
Was that always around as far as you can remember?
No.
No.
But I just don't remember when it was either. It was.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think the first one was over here on Seymour Street, someplace.
Mm-hmm.
It was just a little house.
Well, now when you say that Miss Hayward got it going, did she take it out of that and put it? What was her role?
Well, I think she just organized it for the cover girls to be in YWCA, and so we were a branch off of it, because at that time we couldn't go to the one downtown.
Yeah. Well, did she organize the one on Seymour?
I don't know where that was the original one or not. I mean, I don't think I can quite remember whether that was or not. But then, might have been one before then.
Mm-hmm. But do you remember, did you go to that one on Seymour?
No.
No. By that time they were...
No, I was kind of small, and
Mm-hmm.
of course they took small children, but I wasn't able to go because my parents didn't quite understand about letting kids go places.
Mm-hmm.
The first time I went was this branch one down. It used to be down here where the Munciana is. When I was finishing high school then.
Mm-hmm. What did you go there for? I mean, what kinds of things?
Oh, like entertainments. I think I went to I think they had a dance or a party for the graduates. I went to that, but I don't remember going to anything else. I didn't go regularly,
Mm-hmm. Did that serve as kind of a social center? Or?
Yes, it did.
There seemed to be something going on there all the time? Or?
Yeah, pretty much, I guess.
Were there any people since then that you think have served as significant leaders?
Yes, guess maybe he was.
What do you remember about Reverend Oliver?
Well, it seems to me that he did. He tried. He helped a lot of people. He picketed places and things like that. This is the only way you're going to get anything done. A lot of these things I didn't really approve of, but it has helped us. I have to admit.
You didn't approve of that kind of demonstration?
No, not at the time. I mean, it seemed to me so futile and silly, but it wasn't at all. I think he did. He was responsible for a lot of people being hired, and I think he was. Yes, he probably was a leader. Mm-hmm.
But he wasn't here that long.
No, he really wasn't here very long. But I guess he had done some things other places that he had been to, where he'd been a pastor. I mean, he was responsible for some, probably some legislation too. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. I also get that kind of response from a number of people who said, well, some who supported him and some who didn't. And from both I get the idea that there were a number of people who did not support him, but now that he's gone, they wish they had.
Mm-hmm,
or at least they
got
say.
to be in such a mess after he left. Because everybody wanted to be a leader. At least some people did.
Uh-huh. But did Negroes in general rally or feel behind him, that whether they were willing to go out on the pavement with him or not, at least they were with him?
I really don't think so. The people here are different from what they are in other places. I don't know.
Would you care to elaborate on that? I've got some ideas too, and some other statements.
Well, I don't know if I want that thing on with that. I have through tradition, and when white people keep their feet on our necks for so long, they're some people like the word conservative, but I would rather say backward. They're not, and they fight everything and everybody, even the people that are trying to help. So, no, most of the people weren't with him. But I think that after he left, they realized that he was, I don't know, there was a strong force in him.
Mm-hmm.
And you see, most of the people here have worked for these families. I mean, the people that were here, the older people, and they sort of went along with what they said and did. So they just, anybody that was for them, like for instance, minimum wage and all that sort of thing for housework, that should have been years ago. I mean, so I don't know. You can't get too much done here, and I don't blame the leaders for not coming.
Mm-hmm. Why do you suppose that is? This backwardness? Is it because of the fact that people who are relatively important in the black community in Muncie work for the white elite people and are afraid?
Yeah, you must have heard that. You probably talked to somebody said that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, because that was in the paper once that a couple of people said it, and it made a lot of folks mad. When I saw the people, I shook their hand.
Uh-huh.
Because it was absolutely true to what was used to people getting mad.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this was a high social class among the Negroes. The wealthier, the more prominent people that you worked for, you know, in their kitchens and your butlers and all that, you know. And
it's not uncommon in some way.
well, I don't know why. because in some areas of the country, maids and cooks are considered nothing, and domestic workers, and particularly in the South. The South is very class conscious and always has been. So and for people that from the South that move here, they can't understand why the maids and cooks are the ones that are in society. Because it's a different setup here.
Do you suppose that it's because there is not a large enough number of Negroes in Muncie, and hasn't been, to create a wealthy and professional and upper class and upper middle class group in society? By and large, the money, the income in Muncie comes from whites. And most of the people who have even been businessmen or had some kind of establishment going have derived most of their income from that, from whites. And whereas in a larger city, whether it's north or south, but especially in the South, which has been by law segregated for so long, Negroes there were able to develop their own institutions.
True.
It seems to me that real, strong Negro institutions have not developed in Muncie.
That's true.
And maybe that's just because the community is small. So it's cut off and barred somewhat from, not just somewhat, but in some cases very clearly and openly, from white institutions. But there aren't enough to create the whole separate class, whole separate group.
I think maybe this is true. And this is probably the reason that the few people here who have, have a higher education, they're really so few. Of course, I think there are a little more now than there was 20 years ago. That they really didn't have anybody to associate with. So they just associated in the mainstream. I mean, to keep from being lonely,
Mm-hmm.
So, but even at that, but like I said, they've tried to keep it down for so long, and if we even tried to get any higher education, they'd have dinner a little later. If they found out we were trying to go to night school, and they had dinner at 6, and you had to be there at 6:30, so they'd have dinner at 6:30.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, we've been kept down so long that we just sort of went along with the program,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Are you also of opinion then that young Negroes growing up in Muncie left when they could? Has there been kind of a talented brain drain?
Yes, I suspect this is true. Some of them have done very well, going other places.
Can you think of a few? I've got, I just ask this, if you can think of a few people offhand, because there are quite a few, and these are the kinds of people you don't find out about because they're not here.
Now, you mean, you're not talking about like 40 years ago, you're talking
Well, even, say, your own classmates. When I asked you before, if you remember any of your classmates who left Muncie, people your age or all along?
I heard about anything outstanding. There might have been, but I just probably didn't know about it.
Mm-hmm. But would you say it's fair that a really ambitious young black person would leave? That sort of is a loaded question because it might suggest that people who are here are not ambitious.
No.
That's not what I mean.
No, I know what you mean. Yeah. I think so, because somebody had their foot on their neck and keep them from getting ahead here, so you might as well go on to greener pastures.
Mm-hmm. Well, on balance, then, you would seem to...
Now, black businesses, they don't seem to work out too well here.
Which, can you think of any?
Well, I know
Beside
one.
Ralph Pettiford, for instance?
Well, I was thinking of the people that have tried them in the last 4 or 5 years. I think they're for instance, Mrs. Robinson, the action director, she's had a couple of stores,
and
they just kind of, they didn't seem to. And this one over here on Jackson was a very nice store. It had some lovely things in it, but I don't think it did very well because it folded.
Mm-hmm.
And they're not business oriented. As a race, we really are not business oriented because we don't have that much business behind us. Now, you take Jewish people, they have 4,000 years of business behind them. We have 400 years of slavery, so we don't know that much about business. We have to go to school and learn it,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Even in the restaurant business or anything. I mean, of course, years ago, before there were taxes and all that stuff, so much high taxes, why people eked out a living, running a restaurant and all. But now it's a little more complex. In fact, it's very complex.
Have things improved, in your view? If they have, when and at what points, and in what ways, and or have they not? Have they stayed about the same?
Oh no, I think we've made some progress. For instance, people are being hired in more capacities. I mean, of course, this goes back to the law. And then, of course, housing. We can live any place we can afford. And I think things have improved very much. Yes, indeed.
When did that get to be the case, that you could live wherever you could afford?
Well, I'd rather say since about 65, long in there. Yeah, something like that, I think.
Mm-hmm. Well, do you think that today there is really a good opportunity for a young black person growing up in Muncie to stay here?
I think, for instance, maybe a doctor, or, I think with the professions, I think it would be good. We need a lawyer, and I think it would be good to stay here now.
Would your advice to an ambitious 18-year-old be to stay there?
Yes, I think so.
As well as your hope,
Mm-hmm.
I would assume. Well, do you see this happening, or is there still kind of a talent drain away?
I don't know, because I don't have much contact with young people anymore.
Well, what about some of the young people in your church? In the last 5 or 6 years, have they seemed to stick around?
Well, no, we have one of my friends. He's an engineer now. He lives in Indianapolis.
Who is this?
Myron Hardeman. They're members of our church, Melvin Hardeman's son.
Mm-hmm.
And let's see who else is doing anything.
Well, what, let me interrupt that thought. What was the reaction that you saw in Muncie to the emergence of Dr. King on the national scene? Both on the part of whites and on the part of blacks.
Well, actually, I didn't discuss it with whites. But, imagine they all took it just like I did when he died. I took all his work just like I was a member of the family.
Yeah. That was pretty hard.
Rough. Somebody always has to die before anything good. The Civil Rights Bill went through the next day, the very next meeting, session. It went passed right through both houses before anything.
Did his actions in Montgomery and then in Birmingham and so on have any repercussions in Muncie?
Well, like I say, I don't know.
There weren't any marches and demonstrations and that kind of thing.
Not long in then, I don't think there were.
But did some of the walls crumble a little bit?
Oh, you mean at that time?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know whether anything actually happened here or not. But things are really turning over down south.
Mm-hmm.
Things are really good, and it's really nice down there now. A friend said, I'd like to go south. I've never been south. This is last month. And I said, you won't appreciate it. The only way you would appreciate it is you would have gone 20 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Now go. Oh, man. It's paradise down there. It sure was hell down there.
Mm-hmm.
Dr. King's caused all of it, too. There's some place I thought, man, this was nice down there. People were afraid to breathe.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, that stopped. I don't know. That stopped long about 55 or 6. Those Jim Crow trains. Oh. See, I traveled south all during World War II.
Mm-hmm. Well, what about let's shift over to the church for a while now. I'm particularly interested in what you can tell me about Trinity. And I started almost, in need of all kinds of information, including the
Did you get
basic.
any information at all about Trinity?
I've got bits and snatches here and there, but if you can give it to me in a little more orderly, that would be very helpful.
Well, all right, let me tell you about this first incident I remember. I must have been about 5 or 6 years old, and then people went to revivals. We didn't belong to Trinity then, but we went to revival. And,
this was in the First Street church?
Yeah, in the old church. And there were so many people in there that the church collapsed. It absolutely collapsed.
Hmm.
And there was a stove and chairs. and it was in the wintertime, and the stove was red hot. And the men in the audience rushed up to keep the stove from turning over, setting the place on fire. People went out windows, and that's when I said it must be in a paper someplace.
Hmm.
Yeah, it was something else.
Now that was the building that is in the middle of the block.
But it's been, of course, that was built up, and it's been remodeled and this and that and the other several times since then.
Yeah.
Not remodeled, but different things been restored. But now, as for any other history, until we get those papers out of Cornerstone, I just...
Well, what year, do you know what year it was started?
I believe on that Cornerstone it says 1875. Because the minister's name was on there, and he had the same name as mine. I don't think Reverend John Downs.
1875.
I believe that was the year that's on. That's the year that's on there.
And that's that same building.
95. Well, anyway, that same building. Probably was 95. Seems like to me that's pretty close after slavery, 75.
Yeah, there were only, I think only two churches then, both Calvary and Bethel, were in existence by 75, I think.
Well, I think this one, and see, we were the segregated Methodist church, you know. We weren't in the same conference. We were like them, you know, like High Street and the others. But we actually weren't in the same conference because we, you know, were segregated. In other words, I had that particular church history once. And
this was right from the start of the church, that it was a segregated church.
We were in this big central jurisdiction, and we had to travel miles for our conferences. We'd have them in Chicago, Detroit, and all these places. The Lord was close. Because this central jurisdiction covered a whole lot of territory. It was all black, solid, until we integrated. And that was, well, full. They talked about it in 52, but this is as far as it got. But I think it must have been 60 when it really came through.
And became the United Methodist.
No, we still were Methodist, but we were in the regular conference. It's only been about 5 years. United Methodist meant that we went, the United Brethren came, we went together. That's where the United came in at. See, because it has really united twice in the last 13 years. Well, I'd say 10. So now we're really big. Because all the former United Brethren churches are United Methodist churches.
I see. Are you in the same fellowship then with the High Street? And same conference, I mean?
Yeah, we have white members.
Right, I know. I have been in Trinity several times.
Oh, have you?
Well, who are some of the early ministers that you remember?
Well, there was a Reverend Prentice there when the church fell in.
Prentice?
Prentice. I'm sure he's passed away. Then when I joined, when I was 14 years old, I joined under a Reverend Giles. And after that, I think there was a Reverend Walker and a Reverend Washington. And we get down to present day, a little later, and Reverend Lester, and some of them stayed like 5 years.
Did the conference have that same Methodist policy of changing ministers every 3 years, or?
Well, I don't think it was a set thing. I think it was like 2, 3, some stayed 5.
But now, were they always full-time ministers? Was the church at that point large enough to support a minister full-time, or were they ministers who had to do something to earn?
Most of them did something else. You know, like we had one that worked at the press office, janitor or something.
Mm-hmm.
We've had him work as janitor in school in the last 25 years.
Mm-hmm. So all through the 20s and 30s, ministers were part-time ministers and part-time something else.
Well, they were always in their pulpits and stuff.
Right.
But they had, moonlight.
They moonlighted, yeah. Right.
Or else they have like two churches. We had one that had to go down to Rushville every Sunday for the afternoon service. And then, oh my goodness, when we had this church out in Whiteley, they had both of those. Our pastor we had now had that one and this one. Where it used to be the Whiteley Community Center that's closed up now. They're on Penn Street, Penn and Lowell, huh?
Mm-hmm. I think it is.
Well, that was a Whiteley Methodist church.
Mm-hmm. And that's closed down now.
Oh yeah, I think it's condemned now. It's
Yeah.
probably just worn out, but we sold it to the city of Muncie for $1
Mm-hmm.
to use as a community center.
Mm-hmm.
That's only been maybe, I don't know, it's been 10 years. Yeah, it's probably about 11 years, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But we had, the pastor had, both of them. In fact, the parsonage was in Whiteley.
Mm-hmm. Well, how big was the church when you became a member?
Well, there weren't many. There were only just a few people there. And in fact, we don't carry big congregations here.
Mm-hmm.
Because when we moved into the new church 10 years ago, it was in '64, we only had 85 members. That was big for us.
85 members? That's about as big as it's been?
Well, I think there's more than that. Now there's probably 150 or something like that, but
up until
we had 85 members when we was contracted for this new church.
Mm-hmm. Now, how many did that mean for Sunday morning service?
You mean how many came?
Yeah, how many would be there of a Sunday morning?
Oh, sometimes 40, maybe 50. See, you're counting children here.
Yeah. I'm familiar with that. My daddy was a minister.
Oh, what?
What did you remember?
Well, I remember that they held service on street corners, and then they had tent meetings in the summertime.
Mm-hmm. What street corners? Downtown or
off the community? Down there by our house, First and Center, and
mm-hmm.
all around down in there.
This was back in the early 20s?
Yeah.
Yeah, he came here in 22.
Anniversary, wasn't it, when he passed away?
Yeah, he came here in 22. Uh-huh. Did he draw much of a crowd?
Oh, yeah.
Some to hear and some to jeer.
Well, it was different,
Mm-hmm.
And people, sometimes they went to hear the testimony.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well,
have you talked to any of his members?
No.
Actually, that were with him back then.
Mm-hmm. Would you regard someone like Bishop Sanders as a leader? What would you kind of say? Here's a man who had a church, a fairly small church, but not the smallest. Was here for 50 years. What kind of an impact did he have on the community? Probably awfully hard to say.
He was a good man, and everybody respected him.
Uh-huh.
I can't understand why they're saying all this about the church has been integrated now, but from the very beginning.
Right at the start, there were whites who went
Yes.
out there.
Yes.
Was that regarded as unusual? At the beginning, in the early 20s?
See, I really don't know, being a child, I didn't.
Were there any other?
But the schools here have been always integrated. I mean, that didn't affect me like it did the rest of us kids. I don't know why schools here were always integrated. We're here.
Were there other integrated churches in Muncie? Say before the last 10 years or something?
Well, of course, Catholic churches. This is St. Lawrence. I guess there have been, Negro Catholics down through the years.
Yeah. But the Baptists and Methodists?
I don't think so. I hadn't heard of it.
Well, now you're, when you moved out of that building on First Street, you say then you were having about 45 of a Sunday morning. Was that more than had been, say, in 1950 or 40 or earlier times? Or about the same?
I think we had quite a few during World War II that came, We had sort of an outgoing minister then, that went out and brought the people in. But then a lot of people dropped away, after he left. No, I think we reached our peak when we went into the new church. I think we had quite a few members. 85 at the time.
Is the increase in membership since then due to the church, the minister, the fact of integration, or what, or all? Say now there are maybe 150 members.
I really don't know what it's due, because we've also lost a few members. So I don't really know what the membership is now, because I haven't been active for a few years. So I really don't know.
Now, as far as people being visible in the community, I don't suppose anybody's been more visible than Reverend William, at least in the last few years. When did he come here?
I believe it was 61. I think so. 61, I think.
Was he responsible for moving into the new building? Or what was
the groundwork was laid. We were trying to move in the change of pastors. We were getting it ready. The groundwork was laid. There was meetings upon meetings, bishops, and all that, and the pastor of that church that went on for. And so I can't say that he was directly responsible yet.
Was that a white church?
Yes, it was. It was the Holiness Church, Pilgrim Holiness.
That's right. That's right. Oh, what do you want to say about Reverend Williams' position in the community?